Hello Kingdom fans, welcome back to the channel, and yes, you read that title and our thumbnail correctly. I have figured out what Riboku's weakness is that Ousen claimed to know way back in chapter 802. And supposedly this weakness is so great that using it against him would make defeating him a trivial matter. Now, I know what you're thinking. I think the same, to be honest with you. Is it his compassion for his people? Is it something to do with the feud in the Zhao court between the military and the politicians? Or is it the obvious answer, Kaine, his new bride and longtime love? The answer to all of them is yes, absolutely, to a certain extent for sure. But all these are off the battlefield, so I believe Ousen is referring to a battlefield weakness that he could exploit if he wanted to, because all these weaknesses have human emotion factor. And Ousen cannot understand that for the life of him, since he is a cold, calculating machine. But before we go any further into this topic, I just want to take this opportunity to say that if you guys like seeing plenty of Kingdom content and want to stay up to date with the manga and discuss all types of Kingdom related topics, then you should smash that like button down below, and while you're down there, remember to hit that subscribe button with that notification bell so you can stay up to date with the channel. And now diving right back on into it, I have decided that Riboku's weakness, according to Ousen's logic, is that all of Riboku's strategies have the same flaw, which is that they have no room in them for adapting the plan to an unforeseen situation, because Riboku is great at predicting many possible events in a battle, but he is not clairvoyant. He cannot predict every last thing, especially when there are individuals that surpass his predetermined expectations. And so to prove my point, I will go through the series chronologically, because Riboku himself in a way admits this is his greatest weakness, and you know in this upcoming arc, if given the opportunity, Ousen will absolutely use this to his advantage. And fair warning now, there are big spoilers ahead if you haven't read the series already. And so we start at the beginning of where Riboku made his grand entrance onto the world stage, and I of course am referring to the infamous battle of Bayou. Now I won't go over the battle, just the moments that help me prove my point. So as we all know, Riboku has staged the whole battle in what was a successful attempt to draw out the semi-retired Wookiee to make a name for himself. Now Riboku successfully cornered Wookiee, and he did end up being defeated by Huken in their duel. But in preparation for this battle, Riboku had hidden Zhao units in the predicted location of the final battle, where he intended to fully eliminate the main Wookiee force, leaving none alive. But thanks to two elements in this campaign that were more or less unknown, Riboku's plan failed. I speak of course of the hidden gems known as To and Mobu. And yes, I know what you will say, that Shin defeating the Zhao General Fuki disrupted Riboku's overall plan also. But you guys forget that there were plans in place for the loss of any general since the very beginning of that campaign. So while yes, it was an inconvenience, it was also well within Riboku's plan. But back to To and Mobu now. So Mobu was known at the time as a powerful general, but nobody knew just how powerful, because him being one of Ryofi's 4 pillars, he was away from the battlefield often. With his immense power, Mobu exceeded any and all expectations in this campaign. He made an escape route and a distraction for the retreating Wookiee forces, which Riboku clearly did not see coming and was clearly angry about it. Then we have To, who also led a blind charge on Riboku's HQ after slaying Chozu, which wasn't part of his plan. Not to mention, he then left the blind charge to go see Wookiee's final moments and cut his way out of the center of the battlefield to presumably join the rear guard of the retreating Wookiee remnants, where he actually arrived alone to see Wookiee's final moments, proving he is not only a one-man army, but also, as Chozu said, To was a monster hidden by Wookiee. Now you can't blame Riboku for not predicting these two, because they are literally Kin's top 2 future generals. However, you could absolutely blame Riboku for this next example, which is the Battle of Sai during the Coalition War. So yes, the siege of Sai lasted far longer than Riboku thought, and he did lose more troops. But first, the people of Sai were going to surrender, and after the arrival of Sei, the Dukyu remnants along with Shin, obviously their morale and will to fight skyrocketed to a level far beyond what Riboku could have expected. Now I know that Riboku could not have known about Sei being in the city, but he decided to go all out on the offensive after thinking no kin army would show up to provide support after 7 days. Doing this, he left his back completely exposed, which of course led to the mountain tribes arriving unexpectedly and then decimating the Zhao forces. And yes, I know that even if Riboku did set up a proper rear guard, odds are they wouldn't have made much of a difference when fighting the ferocious mountain tribes' assault. And yes, the mountain tribes were a completely unknown force at the time, I grant you that, but all the same, it was just a poor decision to not even place a few lookouts on the surrounding cliffs in case of approaching enemy forces, because a force that size approaching definitely kicked up some dust clouds. His cockiness in this battle is what led to his downfall. And after that defeat, he loses his position in the Zhao government and is sent away from the capital for a while, but is long back in the place of power before his next big battle, which is the Western Zhao invasion. Now, before this campaign, Riboku had already been preparing the western border of Zhao for an invasion after the loss of Kokuyu Hills, by creating castles, forts, and God knows what else in a matter of weeks, essentially making the border a complete spiderweb of obstacles to turn the Qin invasion into a battle of attrition over a battle for a tactical location, which by all logical standards is the correct thing to do. So seeing this, Qin came to the conclusion that the only way to outwit Riboku is make a drastic illogical move, which was to risk everything and pierce the heart of Zhao by conquering the key city of Gyou and all the surrounding territory. Now this was one of the 4 things in this arc that outplayed Riboku. So of course Riboku had somewhat predicted such a move, and therefore he made the key defensive sea Retsubi quite literally flawed to its very core to lure the enemy into what was essentially the world's biggest trap. This led to the locust strategy being formed that even had Riboku in a cold sweat, because he knew it was a colossal drain on resources, and if the refugees got hungry, then there would be riots which would leave the city very vulnerable. This led to Riboku going on the offensive against the Qin army because he didn't know how long Gyou's resources would last. But yes, eventually he found out the city had enough food reserves to outlast the Qin army supplies, which led to him going on the defensive and just wait them out, making the biggest factor in taking down Gyou occur, which was the burning of the grain supplies in Gyou, thanks to the spies Ousen had hidden among the refugees, causing them to rebel and allowing the Kanki army to enter the city with ease. And yes, these were definitely game-changing events, but the biggest and most surprising of all was the awakening of Muten, Wuhan, Shin, and their respective forces. Even during this arc, each of them were compared to the likes of the past 6 great generals and Zhao 3 Gate Heavens, where they went through the same awakening. Now, Riboku knew to expect something from Shin because his potential was long acknowledged by him, but Muten and Wuhan's awakening were without a doubt a complete surprise, despite both of them having immense reputations that you have to imagine Riboku was aware of. Now, I know Riboku never had experience fighting them before, but still, he underestimated them and Ousen and refused to adapt his overall strategy to deal with them. Now, this next example is honestly my favorite one to give because it contradicts everything Riboku claims to know in this arc, and this is of course the Battle of Gian, where Riboku claims to have the perfect plan to eliminate Kanki despite 6 months of preparations. So during this battle, where he entraps the Kanki army with alongside some other forces, Riboku claims that Kanki's weakness is that he is unable to adapt his methods of warfare and is only effective in battles with wilderness, which makes him completely useless in battles taking place on plains and open spaces due to his lack of education in strategy. And thanks to his background as a bandit, all he is good at is guerrilla warfare and psychological tactics. And yes, I agree with this. To a certain extent, Riboku is correct. But despite all of that, Riboku knew Kanki's playbook, and still he was so close to losing to him. And the best part is all of that could have been avoided if Riboku didn't let his personal feelings get in the way when Kanki was escaping the encirclement. What do I mean, you ask? Oh, I'll happily tell you. While Kanki was fighting his way out of the encirclement, Riboku could have sent the Bananji army to block their path and prevent them from escaping entirely, but instead he chose to not endanger Bananji and let the Kanki forces escape into the darkness of the night. Now, I know Bananji is Riboku's greatest weapon and closest ally, and not wanting him to get hurt or to possibly die, I also understand, but unless I am mistaken, the whole point of Bananji is him being Riboku's greatest weapon. And is it not the role of the greatest weapon to deal the finishing blow to the most crucial enemies, because Kanki is easily one of, if not the greatest opponent Riboku has ever faced. Again, bringing me back to the point where he almost died because of this. Despite knowing Kanki's tactics, in a worried state, he fell directly into Kanki's trap. If he adapted his strategy to the situation, he would have allowed Enkan and the Vanguard forces to proceed as they did, while Riboku should have taken the safe route, which would have been slower but more secure with a larger force, so he would not get isolated. And despite saying this exact thing numerous times throughout the arc, he still fell for it. And of course, I know the High Shin unit and Gakuka escaping were outside of Riboku's predictions, but all in all, they had little to no effect on Riboku during this arc, aside from delaying his reinforcements, giving Kanki more time to attack. Now, my final example has no effect on Riboku personally. However, it does show him realizing his inability to adapt his plans and then forms a plan around his inability to not adapt. And that is to take the wildest and most unpredictable factors away from the most crucial positions in the ensuing battle. And yes, I am of course talking about Shin and Wuhan in the Battle of Hangul. Riboku admits that Shin and Wuhan are the biggest threats to him in this battle after realizing Shin has been at the center of all of his defeats since Bayou, while Wuhan is just as capable of turning the tide of a battle due to his strategic abilities and his capabilities to also lead from the front, taking on any foe fearlessly. Realizing this, he decides to draw them away from the main fighting, allowing Shibashu to attack the Ousen army without fear. And this leads to him being successful because he knows his own weakness, but as we can clearly see, time and time again throughout the series, even when Riboku knows things, he continues to make the crucial mistake of not adapting. So given the right scenario, and I guarantee you Ousen has thought of many scenarios, Riboku will make the same mistake again, which will allow Ousen, or any opponent really, to take advantage of it. And so Kingdom fans, that's all I have to say on this topic. Let me hear what you guys think. Am I wrong and overthinking things, or am I dead on about this? I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And remember, if you enjoyed this video and Kingdom content in general, then click on that subscribe button down below with the notification bell so you can stay up to date with the channel and all things Kingdom.